And today's going to be sort of a different meeting. Today I really want to make this sort of a work session. And here's my warning, it may fall flat on its face. It may be the worst meeting you've attended all year. It could also be the best depending upon how well you guys are willing to be vulnerable and open up and share. So it could be a very interesting day. But we want to talk about how to make life wonderful. And how do we actually make life wonderful for ourselves and the people we care about on a consistent basis? Well, J. Krishnamurti said, the ability to observe others without judgment is the highest form of human intelligence. What do you suppose he means there?
Well, I think you get your initial perception, you can just look at somebody and immediately a thought pops into your head. Right or wrong, it's just, it is a sort of a judgment. Thought bias.
And when we judge somebody right out front, do you think that's usually helpful? No. And so he says it's the highest form of human intelligence. Now, part of it is he talks about the fact that if we can just learn to observe others without judgment, we are much happier on the planet. Why is that? Why are we happier when we don't judge others?
If your judgment's negative about that person, then it's going to have a negative effect on you. But if it's just positive, maybe if you don't have any at all, you're just going to go on your own merry way, I guess.
Now, it's interesting because he says that any judgment of others, whether it's positive or negative, is actually life-alienating communication. So if I judge you and I judge you in a positive way, why would somebody say that's life-alienating?
Because you need to focus on yourself.
I just think you have to relearn about these people when you come in with a blank slate, and you don't have to do that.
See, and this is an interesting thing. We tend to think, well, if I'm judging somebody positively, that's a good thing. J. Krishnamurti says, no, it's really not a good thing. And there's a couple of reasons for that. First of all, he says, when we observe, we're simply noticing what is. We're seeing what actually happened. It's also called awareness or mindfulness, just being aware of what is happening around us. When we make a judgment, we're comparing what is to what we think should be and putting a label of good or bad on it. But all judgments are what? They're internal comparisons. So is our judgment right or wrong? So here's what I want you to know. My judgments are right. Yours, I'm not so sure about. See, so from our own perspective, our judgments are always what? Right. But that puts us in that sort of position of basically always being right. We put ourselves in that position of being God. We're judging others. If we really want to make life wonderful for ourselves and for others, we've got to learn to avoid doing that. Both praise and compliments are life alienating. Appreciation expressed in this form reveals little of what's going on in the speaker and establishes the speaker as someone who sits in judgment of others. And we talk about having an attitude of gratitude at times, but what does that really mean? And sometimes we talk about it, but gratitude can be tricky. Compliments are often judgments. Even if they're positive judgments of others, that we need to be careful of. So here's my question for you this morning. Does praising and complimenting others work? And the research on this is very clear. It works in the short term. If I praise you, in the short term, you're probably going to work harder for a little bit more. But if I praise you and you sense that the reason I'm praising you is only to get you to work harder, does it actually keep you motivated? No, it actually ends up unmotivating you. And so we want to be very careful of praising just for praising's sake. Judgments have the following effect on the judge and the judged. They leave people feeling good or bad, defensive or offensive, feeling inferior or superior. Judgments are anxiety-provoking, and they're subjective. So here's my question: are judgments a good thing?
Apparently not.
So why do we reach judgment so quickly? Out of habit?
It's our biology that kept us safe. So we made judgments on whether things were safe or not.
And you know that reptilian brain kicks into those judgments. Now, if we can sort of say, take a second and take a breath to say, okay, I want to get out of that reptilian mind, and now I just want to observe what's happening, we'll find that life is much more wonderful. Because we're happier, other people are happier when we are not in judgment. So here's my question for you. How do you feel when other people judge you?
Like they're wrong.
It's like they're wrong.
It depends on if it's positive or negative.
Yeah, there you go.
So even if I judge you in a positive way, and I say, what have I done when I judge you, even if it's positive? I may make you feel good in the short term, but what does that really say about me? That I'm the one that actually knows whether you're good or bad. And if I judge you as bad, you're bad. If I judge you as good, I'm good. So where does somebody else's judgment put control of your life in? In their hands. Instead of your own hands. And this is never a good thing to actually think about. Now, we hear a lot about gratitude being the fuel of life. Whenever we give or receive gratitude, it makes life more wonderful, and it gives us energy, and the research on this is very clear. When people share a sincere gratitude, it tends to inspire them, make them feel good, and here's the amazing thing, the person receiving it also gets a huge dopamine rush. Now, the research also shows that when people witness somebody expressing gratitude, even though it's not directed at them, they get a huge dopamine rush as well. So it makes everybody around them happier. This is a good thing if we want to make life wonderful. Now, here's my question. Why is it so hard for people to express gratitude? Just out of curiosity, how many of you have had some experiences in your life where you wish somebody would have expressed some gratitude to you that did not? Anybody besides me? So it seems like it's hard for people to express gratitude, and we want to talk about why that is. First of all, gratitude keeps us from taking things for granted. It helps you notice the good things in your life, and it helps you feel true appreciation for your life. And that's pretty powerful. When we have a feeling of gratitude, it's actually impossible for us to be angry or depressed. Why is that?
Because gratitude's on the highest spectrum of energy next to passion, and anger and depression are on the lowest, or the opposite, so that's why it's nearly impossible.
And so this is something to be aware of. Say, gosh, if I'm down, if I'm depressed, the fastest way to get out of depression is to think, what am I grateful for? What is there in my life that I have to be appreciative of? Now, I know that I've talked to some of you, and you don't think there's anything in your life to be appreciative of. But, we are in America, which is alone one thing alone that's worthwhile. So I want you to think about, what are the things that you truly have to be grateful for? So what do you really think stops people from giving or receiving gratitude? Since we know it makes people happy to both give, receive, and even witness gratitude, what stops people from expressing gratitude? This is the interactive part. Vulnerability. And what are we nervous about? What are we vulnerable about?
I think we don't like to admit that we need the help, and it's hard to accept it. It makes us feel weak.
So it can make us feel weak when somebody expresses their gratitude towards us. Many of us do not receive appreciation gracefully. How many of you can remember a time thinking back where somebody expressed appreciation to you and you sort of waved it off? It was no big deal. And just their attempt at expressing their gratitude made you a little bit nervous. So why is that the case?
Don't hear it enough.
What?
Don't hear it enough.
So we don't hear enough. But if we didn't hear enough, it seems like when somebody came to us and expressed appreciation, we'd say, oh my goodness, I really want to pay attention. I haven't heard this in a long time. I really want to give it an opportunity.
I think people are afraid of being arrogant, like, oh yeah, I did do that.
See, and we often worry whether we truly deserve it. Do I really deserve their gratitude? And if in our own mind we don't think we deserve it, it's hard to listen to it. We also worry about what's being expected of us, especially if we have teachers or managers who use appreciation as a means to spur productivity. Anybody ever have a parent tried to praise you to get you to clean your room? Gives you a positive thing. If you've been to the management training, give them a positive compliment before you share the negative. Now, what does that do in people's brains? Programs it to, gosh, if they're sharing a positive with me, be careful, there's something negative coming. So all of these things start getting to our brain. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to write down 3 examples of times when someone expressed appreciation for something you did, and you dismissed it, and you really did not allow the other person to fully express their gratitude. Now, I told you this is where we need to actually open up, write these things down, do the exercises. This is where the value will come if you're willing to do this. So I don't see anybody writing yet. So think about 3 times. Just go back. Could be a long time ago, could be last week, could be this morning. 3 times when someone expressed appreciation for something you did, and you really dismissed it. You didn't let them fully express how they felt.
I know that I've done it. I just can't think of the specific instances where it's happened.
Okay, well, just try and think back. Maybe think about family members, your spouse, maybe a client. And the more you can think back and think of a specific detail, the more effective this exercise will be. So, who's willing to give us an example? All right.
So I had to think of something really fresh. So I've been courting a couple for a few months from an open house, and they put me off and not answered me very diligently. And they reached out yesterday for my email through the weekend, and it was just a simple follow-up I was thinking about, and I saw them on Facebook. And she said, you know, my daughter found this house on Zillow today. And so I quickly, it was the right time, I looked it up. It had been on the market 0 days. So I had an opening, which was odd because I've been showing every evening, but my evening was open. So I called it and said, I need to come there tonight. They took me in there last night. They saw it. They were the first people in. I really had to jump through some hoops. I had to call the agent because there was a dog. They weren't prepared. I got them in. I managed this very large dog, which just looked to death. But I got the dog outside, got them in. They were there within 45 minutes of the phone call, and she was very grateful. And my response was, "This is just what we do. You know, that's my job." And I literally said, "Oh, that's what we do." Yeah. So I'm sitting here thinking, I probably could have handled that a little better.
All right. A good example of that. So what happened when she was expressing appreciation? What did you feel, and what was your thinking process that sort of made you say, oh, it's just our job?
I think my thought process was that my goal is to come from contribution and to share my value. I was really doing the dance of this is what you can expect from our team and how we operate, and you know, we excel at excellence, and it's what you should expect from me.
Okay.
That was my thought process.
All right. Anybody else have an example?
I have one where I thought I should receive praise and didn't. I found someone's dog wandering around UMKC, and I tracked him down, and then when I got there, it's like, okay. So I felt like I won. I was craving some sort of recognition from that, and I did not receive it.
Okay.
And then my real estate lessons. I haven't told my parents yet. So.
All right. Well, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. The times that we wish we would have gotten appreciation. You had an example.
Yeah. Well, we're kind of surprised, my wife and I both, that our married children, we have our grandchildren, and there's always short notice emergencies that come up. You know, whether it's 11 o'clock, I have to take the husband to the house, and you come over and stay with the kids. Of course, we'll be there in 5 minutes, and they feel, oh, we're so bad. You know, it feels terrible that you had to come. Or, you know, we have a dead battery and, you know, have to get somebody to the school play. It's like, okay, we'll come over, bring your car. You're worried about the battery when your husband gets off the shift. And it's like, we kind of stop them right away. It's like, that's okay. It's, you know, we'd feel terrible if you didn't call us.
So it's interesting in that we want to be there for people. And then when people express their appreciation, we tend to dismiss it or wave it off, and I want you to think about, what does that cost your relationship? Anybody here Jewish?
Anyone here what?
Jewish.
My husband is.
So in Judaism, they have this concept that they call a mimnoon. And a mimnoon is when somebody asks you for a favor. They are actually giving you a gift, And the gift is that you have the opportunity to help them. And I want you to think about it. If somebody asks you to do something and you treat every favor that they ask of you as a gift that you get to give, it changes the way you look at things. And one of the things they talk about is that if somebody is expressing appreciation to you, it's rude if you don't allow them to fully express the appreciation. And I really want you to sort of think about that. If somebody is expressing their appreciation for you, wouldn't the kind thing to do is to let them fully express it? And to take that in and realize that at that point in time, you're making a contribution to life. And if you really embrace that, if you allow people to express their appreciation to you, and as they're expressing it, you take it in and say, gosh, I am making life more wonderful. I have actually made a contribution to this person's life. If you fully take that in, how do you think that will make you feel?
Good. It energizes you.
It does. It energizes you. And if they're able to express their appreciation fully, how does that make them feel?
Just as good.
This is called How to Make Life Wonderful.
That reminds me, like in Bold, when we do that example, when we're walking around the room, either filling up the water or doing things on each other's backs, depends on which one it is. But, oh my gosh, it was bringing me to tears when I hear people say nice things to me, because I am usually the person that says nice things to other people. So, it does. It's overwhelming, and it's very nice on both sides, I think.
And to me, that's a great example of that. And yet, even in Bold, as you're doing the exercise, as I was pouring water into people's cups and saying, here's what I appreciate about you, oh, it was no big deal. It's like they're discounting the experience at that time.
I also did that exercise, but I wanted to run out of the room because I couldn't handle it.
So what makes you nervous about it? Why is it hard for you to hear appreciation?
I don't like it.
I just don't want to be appreciated.
I'm talking about
Screw you
Thursday.
then.
It's hard to deal with.
So it is that weird dynamic, and yet this is how we make life more wonderful. So why do we find it hard to hear somebody express gratitude for us? Just, what do you think? We think we don't deserve it?
Well, and I think sometimes too, if somebody expresses gratitude towards me, I immediately want to express gratitude back to them. There's something they've done that, and so it's hard to have it just one way. It's like if you gave me a gift, I would actually feel like I should give you one.
So
It's
that
hard for me to accept it.
that reciprocity sort of gene kicks in.
Mm-hmm.
If they give something to me, I owe them some appreciation.
Well, I also feel like sometimes, like, to ourselves, we may feel one way. Like he was saying that he thought it'd be nice if we got some gratitude for bringing someone's dog back. So inside, he had built up, I'm a really good person. I found somebody's dog and blah, 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 and they didn't do it. So to hear somebody repeat it back to him and say, oh my God, you're wonderful, and stuff like that, that's just verifying what he feels inside. And so it can be emotional. So when you hear it back and someone says something, it's almost like, that I am projecting how I feel like I am. Does that make sense?
Yes. So, and to me, I really want you to think about this for a minute about why is it that we get nervous about letting people truly express gratitude to us and actually touch us emotionally. I mean, we talked about the fact that the research shows if people express gratitude, both the person expressing the gratitude, the people receiving the gratitude, and the people all around them feel good about it. And yet, there's a lot of people like Ken that want to run out of the room when somebody's expressing gratitude.
But I think it's an emotional thing. That's probably why. Because he doesn't like it.
I've never had it.
So, yeah, it all ties to emotions, I think.
And I think you kind of go back to what you said, and how I know the character of a lot of people in this room is you have expectations for yourself. So you're like, I don't feel gratitude for being a great human. That's just like, so why are we talking about it? What's it about? But Leslie says, don't be a blessing blocker.
Well, and Leslie is right. So here's what I want you to understand. Every time you stop somebody from expressing gratitude fully, you're robbing them. And you're not letting your relationship with them truly deepen.
I think maybe the word we're looking for is that when people do show that gratitude, they're getting beyond the mask. You know, we all walk around with our guards up and an agenda and things we're trying to get done. And a lot of us have to push past our emotions to do what we have to do, right? And so when someone talks to us that way, we realize they really see us. And they're penetrating that outer filter that we have as a shell of protection.
And I do think that when somebody is expressing appreciation, they are penetrating through to our being in a very different way. Now, I want you to write down 3 gratitudes that you would have loved to have heard but did not hear. So, like your dog example, maybe a client that you worked incredibly hard for. Maybe you did something for your spouse, your kids, and they did not express gratitude. So write down 2 or 3 examples of situations where you did something for somebody and you would have loved to have heard whether that actually made a difference for them. You would have loved to hear their gratitude, their appreciation for your actions. And of course, you know what's coming next. Who's willing to give us an example? All right.
A couple months back, my dad's house has a problem where the plumbing always backs up into the basement. It's never a fun situation, but he's an over-the-road driver. So he calls me at like 8 o'clock at night and tells me that my stepmom said that the basement had flooded and I needed to go over there and if I could and go walk through all that and get it all cleaned up and pumped out and clean the lines out. And I went over there, it took about 3 hours to get it all done, called him when it was done. He's like, all right, cool, talk to you later. And I was just like, yeah.
So you worked really hard. And it would have been really nice to have a little bit of appreciation or a little gratitude for that. All right, great example. Anybody else have an example?
I've got my building up in St. Joe's, the Green Acres building. It's a commercial office building. I got probably 20 different businesses in there. And I found a billfold laid in the hallway. And so I went back and posted on Facebook that I found a billfold with somebody who made such a billfold, identify yourself, and I'll give it back to you. They had driver's license, credit cards, a little bit of money. And the guy come and identified himself. He was on the phone when he come in. Okay, so I tell us, he had my hand in the billfold, and he said, he turned around and walked away. Okay, thank you.
So, another good example. Anybody else have one? This side of the room.
For kids, you know, there's a lot of things you can think to do the whole weekend, but I mean, like they're professional you know, so hospital stuff also. And you've stayed the whole weekend, or you'll spend the night so that they can sleep, and, you know, sometimes one of them gets it, and sometimes one of them doesn't. I mean, it's quick thank you, love you.
Yeah.
I know they appreciate it, but I guess I just want to hear it sometimes. And then I might blow them off too when they say, and I might say something like, you know, it's just mom, or, I don't know.
So now, for the examples you just wrote down, I want you to think, write down a couple of reasons why you think that person did not express the gratitude to you. So think about why they didn't express that gratitude.
I think it's more interesting in what it meant to me. When the guy did it to me, I said, you know what, it doesn't really matter. I did a good thing, I feel good inside. So I feel sorry for them.
Yeah.
And there is something about it that is, you know, we do things because that's who we are, but we still need some validation that, yes, we did make a contribution to life. And it is good to actually be able to do that. But from their perspective, what do you think stops them? Why do you think the guy didn't express gratitude for the billfold?
I think we just,
Yeah.
I wonder if we, I always try to tell my kids, like, how people behave says a lot more about them than us. Like, his dog could have gotten ran over and been missing, he's on the phone. Like, we just don't know, like, I hate making excuses for people, but we don't know what's going on in their life.
Yeah.
Well, that's true.
And we don't.
And I think just a lot of people don't think about it. I'm sorry, talking to somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, and I can use probably every one of us in here. I mean, we talk about the type of character that we have, or we wouldn't be Keller Williams. How often do you get up in the morning and just be grateful for being free? I mean, that's a huge thing. You're being grateful that you're in a warm house or a full house, and since you don't necessarily express it, even though you feel it and you are, I just don't think about it all the time. And I do have one thing I'd like to add while I'm sitting here thinking about this. Is like, my kids are so grateful. And I do think, after I go back and look at it, because they're always thanking us, and it's like, oh, we love to do it, you know, I'm glad we can. Like Kevin was saying, you know, so I think it's good now that the kids, I mean, I can look at my kids, and they are grateful. They are genuinely thankful. And I do feel like, for me, I accept their gratitude more because I know it's heartfelt.
All right.
I was just going to go back to what Joe Marie said, that often I think we set it up. So we set a standard, an expectation, especially with our children, that that's just what we do. And so I don't think they always think to voice that level of appreciation, because we say things like, it's just mom. So we create that. We create that block.
And I did that with one, I did do that. Now I'm seeing it. I was in real estate before they were born, and then when they were, and she was down the street, so get them in the car and drop them off at, you know, grandma's, and it's, I did do that. I know I showed appreciation in so many ways to her, but I took it for granted.
So I want to think now, thinking about the examples of, you know, appreciation you would like to hear and why they didn't hear it, how many of you can think of examples that you personally did something similar but didn't express gratitude about it? Anybody besides me? So what stopped you? So, picking on Don's example, I want you to think about it. Do you think he could have been nervous? I wonder if Don expects a reward. What's he going to expect from me? So instead of putting myself in a vulnerable position, you know, I'll sort of wave it off as a not a big deal. So here's what I want you to do now. Write down 3 to 5 gratitudes that you have not shared with somebody that, if you passed away right now, you would have regretted not sharing. So just jot down 3 to 5 gratitudes with somebody that you would really regret not sharing. And while you're doing that, I'm going to pass this around, and this is for the Star Agent of the Month. So if you put a person in, whoever wins the most votes gets the Star parking spot. I didn't know we had one, but I found out about it this morning. So I'll pass it around here. So think about 3 to 5 gratitudes that you'd really be sad about if you didn't get to express before you passed away. And then, who's willing to share one? The scary part. Vulnerability. All right.
To my boyfriend, I've known him for like 6 years, but just a big thank you for helping me find my true self.
Okay. So, what do you think has stopped you from expressing that?
God, I cuss too much. I don't know.
You what?
I cuss too much.
You cuss? And because you cuss too much?
No. I don't know. I just didn't know my value until he presented it.
Okay. Anybody else have a gratitude that they would be very sad if they didn't get to express, that they would be willing to share? I know this is vulnerable and scary. And yes.
I have 2 brothers that are 17 and 13 years older than I am. And for many, many years, the communication between us was very minimal. One lives in Arizona and the other one's in KCK. And they seem to have recently taken me on as their pastime. And they call constantly. And one will tell me what the other one's doing, and then that one will call. And every time I see their phone number on my phone, I'm just like, oh, and it's always an inconvenient time. And I work, they're both retired, obviously. And I tend to take that for granted because I know they won't be around forever. But, I really need to probably stop and actually talk to them instead of going, yeah. So, yeah.
And is there a specific appreciation that you'd like to share with them for them making that connection?
Just that they take the time to think of me.
Okay.
Because, my mom passed away in April, so I'm busy with the finances and all the stuff that goes on with both parents being on. And even though they're disconnected from that process, I know that they still want to support me. And I just don't acknowledge that like I should.
Okay. Anybody else have? All right.
I don't think that I've told my friends, but I'm so grateful for all of my friends because they all make me feel like family, include us, and like my wife and I have our kids. We don't have any extended family really, so like for Thanksgiving, we're going to some friend's house and then somebody else's house. It's just the 2 of us, and I'm grateful for that because it's just they're with their families and they're including us in that.
So, to me, now, what do you think is stopping you from sharing that gratitude with other people? Why do we get so nervous about it?
Because maybe I'm a little embarrassed in how they might react, having that worry, will they be grateful, will they not be? You know.
So if they wave it off, we won't feel as good. And yet, is that a good reason not to express it?
No.
See, I really want you to think about this. So, what I want you to do is, since Thanksgiving is coming up, I want you to start practicing expressing the gratitudes and get out of your own way. And if you express gratitude using this following a formula, you'll find that it really does have an impact. Now, people will still try and wave you off, and if somebody tries to wave you off, here's what I want you to do. Say, listen, I know you think it's a big deal, but it's really important that I share this. I would really like you to take a minute and just take it in. And if you will do that, people will tend to let you express their gratitude. Now, tell them specifically what they did that you are grateful for. One of the things that we tend to do is we aren't specific in our gratitude. We'll say, I really appreciate you. And then people will say, I wonder what I did that I appreciate. And they're starting to think, well, what exactly did I do? So tell them specifically. When you called me here, when you did this, when you cleaned out the basement. Be very specific. Here's exactly what I'm sharing my appreciation for. And the more specific you are, the better it will be received. The more general you are, the less impact it has because people won't really know what it is that you were doing. Then, tell them how you feel. When you did X, it made me feel cared for. It made me feel appreciated, valued. Whatever you felt emotionally, share that feeling. And then tell them what need of yours was met. How your life was enriched by what they did. And when you share those three things, you'll find that the impact you have deepens your relationships and makes life more wonderful for everybody. It's that simple. It's not hard. It's not complicated. And yet, it will make a huge difference if you will do it. And then I want you to start thinking about the gratitude you would like to share this next week. For some of you, you've got Thanksgiving coming. How many are having friends over, family over for Thanksgiving? Or you're going to somebody's house for Thanksgiving? You're going to spend... So here's what I want you to do. Think about all the people you're going to see. And I want you to write down something that you're grateful for every single person you're going to see. What do you think would happen if you shared a sincere gratitude with every single person you're going to interact with over Thanksgiving? How many think that would probably just really irritate people? So you know what? I'm never going to invite them over again. That appreciation just made me just too nervous. I guarantee you it'll change the dynamic if you're willing to do that. I know it's scary, and you're going to make them a little nervous, and that's okay. But I really want you to rise up to that challenge. And then think about it. If you do this, you'll live with a much better, consistent attitude of gratitude. I've talked about this gratitude exercise consistently, and I really want you to think about it. Write down what you're grateful for in your life, what you're proud of, what you're happy about. And I found if you take a look at this every morning, it's hard to have a bad day. you wake up and say, oh my goodness, I do have a lot of grateful things to be grateful for. Yes, we're going to have challenges, we're going to have difficulties, but when we start out with that attitude of gratitude, it really does make a difference.
Go back, please.
So takeaways from today. All right, I like that. Be generous with your gratitude. Don't be stingy.
Don't shut people down, let them express it.
Let them express it. And take it in. Receive it graciously.
Receive it, believe it, kid. Let's everybody give Ken a hug.
I'll receive it.
Other takeaways. So, any bucket filling? Yes.
I want to fill my whole bucket because I actually went on vacation without any worries, didn't have a phone or an email for a week, and came home to no fires. I just was like, I'm not needed. Not really. No, I was just really glad I'm not going to be afraid to go again because everybody just did what needed done, and I didn't come back to, it was just,
All right.
it was great. So everybody was awesome.
So there are advantages of building a team. Anybody else? Yes.
To you for, I like this team meeting, and you're not afraid to try something new. That's always good. I will add one thing also, and I should have said it before the bucket going, but that was not the judgment and being subjective. And I'll just relay, my stepdaughter and her husband got a call at 11 o'clock at night that a baby had been, dropped off at the hospital, and they were on the list as foster parents. So they took this baby, and the county gave either coupons or a card to get diapers, milk, and things like that. So the next morning, she was at the store, and so she went through, and she went through the short line to make it even worse. And she had about 6 items, and of course 3 of them were probably the wrong item. And she was getting looks that she said could kill, because she has an Apple Watch. She doesn't look like she should have these coupons, whatever she has. So she said, "Oh my," she said, I'm doing that. I'm going to do that in the middle of the day in the least traffic because it's unbearable." She said, "Find out, oh, you picked out the wrong, et cetera. This is not the right one. You have to go back."
And yet, I look at her and think, I am so thankful she was willing to take a child that needed help.
But they didn't
Right.
They don't know that. They never know what to do.
And so, part of us is we need to always realize there is more to the story than we ever see. And that's why judgment is never a good thing. And if we have to judge them well. All right. Thank you for sharing. All right. Wants, needs. I see we're out of time. Any wants and needs before we wrap up?
I want everybody to have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
And I personally want to express my gratitude for you showing up. I know it's Thanksgiving week, and attendance was light, but I appreciate each and every one of you for coming and participating. And go have a wonderful Thanksgiving and share lots of gratitude.